Okay, shalom everyone. We'll attempt to do the beginning of chapter 28 again. So we're reminded of certain halachot that we already mentioned, but this way we can have an overview of the categories. So there are three categories of sick people according to halacha. A gravely ill person, one whose life is in danger. That's the one we've been talking about most of the time recently. The second one is a regular sick person, one whose whole body is ill but whose life is not in danger. So we gave an example of somebody who's blind or deaf or in a wheelchair, and so their life is not in danger, but they are considered sick. And a mildly sick person, one who's ailing in part of their body or who experiences pain from a bodily ailment or injury. So when caring for a dangerously sick person, one does everything on Shabbat that they would do during the week. All Shabbat prohibitions are overridden in order to save a life, as we saw in the previous chapter. And if you remember, we also said that it must be done by Gedolei Israel, the important people who are Torah observant adults, because that way we know for sure how serious it is, and that's why we treat it. We don't look for a non-Jew or a child, even if there isn't any kind of delay in the treatment that will be given or the care that would be given by them. So when caring for a regular sick person, one who is sick enough that they are forced to lie down, but whose life is not in danger, one may disregard rabbinic prohibitions, but Torah prohibitions remain in force, as will be explained in the next section. So, the first person who was ever sick, it says specifically that he was shocheva mitato. Jacob was contacting Yosef to come and visit him, and it says Vayitchazek Yisrael vayeshev al hamita, that he actually lifted himself slightly to bow his head towards Yosef because Yosef was considered like a king, and so he was actually bedridden, and that's the first time that we know about such a person in the Torah. The Midrash actually says that Yaakov asked to know around what time he'll pass away because he wanted to give the blessings to his sons, as opposed to what happened with Isaac, which was almost, if I remember correctly, almost 60 years before Isaac actually passed away. And so the third category, a mildly sick person or one who is bothered by ailments, that is one who can walk around as though healthy but experiences discomfort from a mild ailment, is subject to all rabbinic laws, and one may not even violate shvut the shvut on their behalf. However, if they are in pain, one may do certain things for them, even though they are categorized as shvut the shvut. Specifically, one may ask a non-Jew to transgress a rabbinic prohibition for them, or a Jew um, may make use of a shinui to do so, which is again shvut the shvut, which is like a double leniency. So the reason why I brought this picture of the mortar and sickle is and pestle, sorry, is to again remind us that techina, grinding, is prohibited on Shabbat from a Torah law. It's one of the 39 categories of melacha. So you would not be allowed, you would be commanded to use this for somebody who is deathly ill, dangerously ill. You would not be allowed to use it for somebody in category two, and you definitely will not be allowed to use it for somebody in category number three. But category number two, the one that is somebody that is all their body is sick, and we're allowed to disregard rabbinic prohibitions, we would be allowed to tell a non-Jew to use this to grind medicine for them. And so, if you remember, at the end of the last chapter, we saw that the reason why there was an argument between the rabbis about using medicine today in general is because we're afraid that you might come to grind, which is biblical. But most people don't know how to do it except with these herbal medicines, and there's so much information out there. So that's why I thought that it would be important to remind us of this prohibition in order to sharpen the differences between the three different categories. And so let's continue now with the idea of medicine. There's a specific rabbinic enactment forbidding a mildly sick person to take medicine. The poskim disagree whether this prohibition pertains to today's medications, which are factory made, and the laws pertaining to one bothered by a mild ailment will be explained in Halachot 3 to 5. So nobody today, as far as I know, knows how to make ibuprofen or Tylenol. And so this isn't an advertisement for those medications. It's just um, that since there's no chance that you're going to start getting the chemicals for it to prepare it, then that's why there's a lot more leniency. And so Rabbi Melamed explains also the philosophy behind this law. The main idea of Shabbat is that on this day we calmly and tranquilly accept reality as it is. If we have no clean clothes, we wear dirty ones. If we forgot to cook a certain dish, we content ourselves with the food we have, or we ask a neighbor for help. If we forgot to turn on the heat, we put on a coat, and if we forgot to turn on the air conditioning, we suffer a bit from the heat. Even though Shabbat laws sometimes cause suffering or discomfort, they liberate us from the burden and tension of having to pay constant attention and ensure that every little detail of our lives is properly addressed. And that's why we talked a lot about how we're supposed to prepare for Shabbat and have a checklist. Therefore, Shabbat is a valuable gift. The feeling of faith, tranquility, and rest that results from accepting reality on Shabbat is enjoyable and uplifting. The sages continued this trend through their enactments, one of which is to refrain from using medicine on Shabbat. If we experience some discomfort, even if it is irritating and unpleasant, we bear it calmly, as this too is part of Shabbat rest. However, if the discomfort causes pain and negates Oneg Shabbat, the sages permitted transgressing minor rabbinic prohibitions, shvut to shvut, like a double leniency, to relieve the suffering. And when it comes to caring for one who is actually sick, the sages allow us to transgress all rabbinic prohibitions, as taking care of one's health is a mitzvah. So we'll stop there and we'll open up for questions, and tomorrow we'll continue with more discussion about these differences.